Joined today by Rudyard Cortez, who's coming from TotalEnergies to talk about how they're doing optimization in their facilities. So, interesting use case. We'll talk a lot about customer use cases today. So, in terms of agenda, we'll start with talking about challenges we hear from industrial customers, what we see as a modern industrial data strategy that helps with those challenges, optimizing for manufacturing operations, what can we do to help with that, and we'll hear about TotalEnergies and the future of industrial IoT. So I'd like to leave you with 3 areas where we're investing in the future, and that represents for us the next steps in IoT and industrial IoT specifically. Okay. Here we go. So starting on the challenges that we see. So we hear several trends from the industry and talking with our customers and partners. One of them is seeing the need for worker development. So there's worker shortages, there's gaps between the generations of workers that creates a gap in understanding how to work the industrial assets, how to do maintenance on those assets, how to operate them, and so on and so forth. So that's one of the big trends we're seeing. We're seeing trends also in terms of customers wanting to have smart factories to help them with optimization of their throughput, look at lowering cost in how they produce, and also improving sustainability. And lastly, one of the trends I'm hearing specifically a lot lately is about smart products. Smart products being smart machines, how to connect them better, how to increase use cases that will help customers, the customers of the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers, getting better services and added services to their customers. So that's something we hear a lot about. All of those challenges are rooted in digital transformation. They're all coming to having a need to bring data, visualize that data, understand the data, and draw insights from them. So we see challenges as well when it comes to digital transformation. A lot of manufacturing companies have started their journey. We see roughly 70% of manufacturers that have started that journey towards digital transformation, but often very challenged. A little less than 30% are actually succeeding in moving forward with digital transformation. We see a tendency of customer being stuck in proof of concepts. So they start proof of concepts to understand how they can leverage data, being stuck in that mode, having challenges to either sell internally to their own internal customers or being able to deploy at scale. So those are challenges that we often see our customers expressing. So very important information to look at and understand before jumping into how we can help solving those issues, how we can help our customers moving forward. So one of the key points in how we see this, and one of the root causes for those challenges, is the disconnect that exists between operational technology and IT. And for most of you who are in the domain, you understand this already. There is a gap, there is a cliff, actually, between those two environments. So bringing them together has been a challenge. It's 2 different environments that don't speak the same language, that try to understand the language of each other, but are always challenged to do so. So we see that as something that's very often at the root of the challenges that our customers are having. And I'll explain a little bit later as we move on how we're helping our customers address this big challenge in particular. So, mentioned digital transformation. It's all about data, right? It's all about having the data accessible, having the data in a centralized place, being able to look at it, being able to use it to draw insights using various technologies such as AI, ML, business intelligence. So the starting point for us is being able to put in place a modern data strategy that encompasses being able to bring different aspects of data into a centralized data lake, and then being able, from that data lake, to draw context, to be able to do prediction using AI ML, and to gain insight, valuable insight that will help grow revenue, grow profit, improve productivity for customers that leverage that information. One of the key aspects when we look at the modern data architecture or modern data strategy, when we apply it to industrial, we see one substantial difference. And that difference is the need to have edge connectivity. Let me explain what I mean by edge connectivity. In the context of industrial companies, having access to equipment telemetry data, which is coming from production environment, is one of the key components of what's going to make a data strategy successful. So being able to have connectivity to those assets is extremely important. And that has been a challenge historically, and is still a challenge in many cases. So we started working a few years back on how to bridge that gap, how to help in connecting into industrial assets. And we started having edge component, namely site-wise edge. So site-wise AWS IoT, site-wise at the edge, is enabling connectivity to OPC UA. And now, since last year, we grew to supporting 10 different protocols. Pre-invent last year, we announced this. And this year, we're now at a point where we support over 280 different protocols. So that's a huge leap forward that enables customers to connect various assets to get data and bring it into a cloud environment to draw further insights. So key component in an industrial data strategy. So what's our approach to this? Specifically, if I look at industrial connectivity, we didn't go and create 280 plus data adapters. We work with partners. This is how we make this work. So AWS focuses on building a strong core, a strong foundation for the data, and then work closely with partners to augment our capabilities and deliver an offering that meets the needs of our different industrial customers. We like to use the following framework to talk about it. What's useful in this framework is it helps understand what are the key use case categories that we see our customers want to fulfill when doing their industrial digital transformation. So we'll talk about those in a minute, but for now, let's focus on what's at the bottom of that framework. That's all the existing investments that customers have made into existing systems, existing assets, etc. The way we see ourselves and our network of partners is being able to bridge the gap between the two, connecting existing investments with future use cases that are part of digital transformation. So we do this in 4 layers, as you can see here. If I walk back from the top layer, from the use case category, and just go down slowly. So at the first layer, what we see is the ability to predict, the ability to analyze and draw insights from data that we've received from manufacturing environments. So being able to do that and feed those different use case categories. In order to do that, we need to have data that's structured and organized. So we have our contextualization layer in which we are able to categorize assets in different models, relate them with other constructs, such as processes, operating procedures, blueprints, etc. And we do that through a knowledge graph. And then event processing sitting in the middle of that to enable good contextualization across all the industrial equipment telemetry data. All of this resides in data stores, right? So in previous slide, I showed how we look at data lake. So think of this as a secure data store where you have the ability to keep your equipment telemetry data with services like IoT Sitewise, but also broader equipment contextual data on your operation, on your maintenance, on your inventory, etc. Right? So this is the store layer. And then from an ingest point of view, what I talk about on what resides at the edge, the ability to connect to industrial equipment, add some context, do some filtering, make sure that what you send to the cloud is actually valuable data for the use cases you run in the cloud. So this is another area where we've made good investments in the past, but all of this are areas that we invest into, but we also invest in our partner network to contribute to that entire framework. So that helps us in solving the customer use cases that you see at the top. So taking a closer look at some of those use cases categories. I won't go through all of them. I'll focus probably on 3 of them just to show you a little bit more details on how we're approaching all of this. So the first one being engineering and design, where we see the possibility for our customers, once they invest into digital transformation and bringing their engineering and design function closer to the data, is the ability to accelerate their time to market, to lower infrastructure costs, to better plan in advance and improve collaboration across different functions. So that's one of the key aspects in engineering and design in the context of digital transformation. In smart manufacturing, the focus is on lowering cost, improving machine and asset productivity, and reducing production downtime, right? Those would be area of focus. While if I look specifically at smart product and smart machines, the idea there, the value add is to change the customer experience. So what we see a lot is the desire from the original equipment manufacturer to switch from delivering equipment to deliver machine as a service. Essentially being able to provide something that's free of care from the end customer, managed by the supplier, managed by the original equipment manufacturer. So that's something we're seeing. I mentioned the trends early on. You can start seeing connection happening here on how we're framing all of this. So on engineering and design, the way we look at this, so taking maybe a second to explain a little bit the mental model we have around the next 3 slides will help you digest them. So what you'll see is the set of services that are usually involved in that category of use cases, the use cases that they help fulfill, and the guidance that AWS provides. So you can see rich guidance that could be reference architecture, it could be solution packages that include our partner products, etc. And you can see at the bottom, series of partners that we're working with in those specific use case categories. So they do not represent all partners, it's a sample of those partners. So specifically in engineering and design, you'll see AWS Batch, IoT Sitewise, which is pretty much always present when we talk about industrial use cases. You'll see also Amazon workspaces, right? That's very useful in use by Aviva, amongst others, right? So that's for engineering and design, gives you an idea of what we're looking into. It's really about computer-aided engineering and product lifecycle management. So you can see different products that are available through AWS services and AWS solutions. Smart manufacturing. So same model. What you'll see here are services that help with the optimization of production, reduction in cost, optimization of efficiency. So that would be things like SageMaker, which helps with predictive maintenance use cases, as an example. IoT Greengrass, on which our edge deployments are based on. IoT Sitewise, again, to retrieve equipment telemetry data, store it, and draw insights from it. IoT Core, which we use extensively, and TwinMaker, which provides the knowledge graph and 3D visualization. Then on smart product, similar set of core product. We see IoT Core being even more present in smart products, Greengrass being present as well. TwinMaker plays a role, right? Nothing better than receiving a new equipment with its digital twin already available, right? As a customer, that's the sort of thing I'm looking for. So use cases we see are around smart machines, so being able to read telemetry out of the box as soon as a machine is delivered. Can give you a quick example of that. Customer called Frontmatech is a machine builder. What they do is machine for processing meats. And essentially, they were building their own solution, their own smart product solution, was usually taking them several days, if not several weeks, to deploy a new solution on those machines. With using Sitewise Edge, and Siemens Industrial Edge as a partner, they're now able to get down to 15 minutes to do their deployment. So substantial improvement because we focused on that sort of use case. So really helping machine builders accelerate their time to value. So with all of that, let's talk about a few other customer examples. GE Aerospace, basically being able to improve their on-time delivery by 10% and improve overall productivity by 2%, mostly by breaking down silos, right? Taking data that were coming from 6 individual areas in their facilities and be able to break the silos, bring all of that together and help improve productivity. Volkswagen took a little bit of different approach, specifically around simulation software, where they started to use different AWS services that allow them to deliver a solution for remote workers. So giving access to the 3D software that for simulation that was needed by their employees so that they can work remotely. Arnec, focusing on refrigeration, wanted to predict ahead of time if there would be downtime on any of their refrigerators deployed on different sites. So they use SageMaker along with other technologies to bring the data in the cloud to be able to do those predictions. They're now able to do those predictions 80% of the time ahead of time. So reducing their downtime quite substantially at the same time. Siemens as a manufacturer, not as the vendor, as the manufacturer that produces PLCs, industrial PCs, automation equipment, what they wanted to do is gain near real-time visibility into their production line. So what they've done is a solution based on Sitewise, along with Siemens Industrial Edge, deployed that to their factory, and essentially reduce drastically by 50% the setup time to gain visibility on what's happening with their assets. So 4 customer examples that show that the impact of digital transformation, the positive impact of digital transformation, and basically return on investment for those 4 customers. And on this, I'd like to invite my friend from TotalEnergies to come and talk to you in more details about their own specific use case.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Rudiger Cortez, Chapter Lead Data Engineer at TotalEnergies Digital Factory. And today, I have the pleasure to present you TotalEnergies and the IoT deployment program at GRP. GRP stands for Gas, Renewable, and Power. So TotalEnergies is a French company that has been operating in the oil and gas industry for 100 years. However, we have been embarking on a transition towards sustainable energies and renewable for the last decade. So our final goal is to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 to contribute to the challenge of climate change. To achieve this objective, we created Integrated Power, a division in TotalEnergies. We aim to achieve 20% of all global production from green energies by 2050. And for doing that, we are investing 70% of new investment every year. This amount for 5 billion euros per year. Technology is at the core of our transition. So for this reason, TotalEnergies created TotalEnergies Digital Factory in 2019. And it created for 3 reasons. First, to have new ways of working with new technologies, to adapt agile practices across the company. Secondly, to accelerate industrialization across all of our divisions. And finally, to allow transformation in our company. So the Digital Factory is located at the heart of Paris, and we have 300 digital experts in different areas. We got data engineers, data scientists, software engineers, product managers, and all working to bring value to the company. We operate in a 100% cloud environment thanks to a partnership with AWS. So far, in the last 5 years, we have delivered 85 products deployed in more than 25 countries around the world. So now I'm going to talk about the GRP IoT deployment program. IoT for us, this program is a lever for digital transformation. And it brings 4 main forces. The first one is changing mindsets. The second one is avoiding silos. Third one, dedicating time to transform. And finally, changing business commitment. I'll detail these 4 in the next slide. So first, changing mindsets. So the IoT allowed operations to see how can digitalize their operations. In this particular example, we connected a biogas site in less than a month. So why changing mindset? Because the operation in industrial sites keep practices for the last 20 years, and they are expert on it. So when you try to explain them that the IoT can bring better production, at the first, they don't believe you. But then when you connect your site and you show that you can increase operations, it changes the mindset. Secondly, avoiding silos. When you have different sites, different devices at the scales, you want to bring them on one side, right? You want to bring them. You got heterogeneous data. You don't want to have your data on a single unit. You don't want your data there. So the IoT allows us to process this heterogeneous data. And in this particular example, in a TotalEnergies site, in a solar farm, we apply an architectural pattern with 3 steps. So we got ingestion, we got transformation, and we got load, something we typically do on data engineering, but apply to IoT. At the edge, we apply AWS IoT greengrass to take the data from the site. We push it to the cloud using AWS IoT Core, which is a event hub. And then we push it to Sidewise, which allows us to transform the data and to push it to Grafana. So at this way, the operators can monitor their site at scale. You can also see a S3 layer when we put raw data and curated data for other applications. So this pattern allows us to quickly connect a site and to quickly get insights from the site. Then dedicated time to transform. The IoT allows us to test and learn. We are no longer on the mindset of going and say, look, you have an IT project and 1 year after you will get results. No, now here we can iterate easily. So we can start from one side and go to a scale in less than 2 years. And we can iterate on it. So as we show, we can connect a biogas site in less than a month. And we can go at the scale iterating and learning. Obtaining business commitment, this is very important. Actually, obtaining trust for clients is very important. And when you see the devices, when you see the heterogeneity of devices, and you are selling a solution, in this example, let's say we got batteries, and I want to sell them to a hospital. What can happen if you don't have the monitoring tools for your client? Well, batteries can burn, actually, can get on fire, and you need to be quick. So the tools AWS is providing us allows us to build tailored monitoring systems. And you can say to your client, look, I can put my system at your place, and you will be able to monitor them. We are no longer putting the system away from our client. We can improve them, actually, and we can sell our system. And finally, our renewable division has faced challenges. Can you imagine a solar farm which is away? So you can only have few operational staff there. Everything needs to be done remotely. And other solutions like drones or computer vision, they are costly as a scale. You can do it for a site, but if you want to go big, if you want to go 100x, it's going to be very costly and complex. So the IoT for us is the best cost-effective solution, and is bringing the gap between devices and computer networks. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Really appreciate. So to me, that helps understand how TotalEnergies has been able to bridge the OT-IT gap, right? Clearly been able to progress extremely quickly. I like the agility that we're seeing in that solution, right? And that agility is fueled by bridging the gap between OT and IT. So I'd like now to bring you to how we see a glimpse at how we see the future of industrial IoT. I'll talk of it from the perspective of connecting machine data, how we see that evolving, specifically around AWS IoT site-wise. Then I'll cover a little bit about how we see digital twins coming into that and helping with tying the machine data back into process, right? And improving processes overall. And then we'll talk about people, which is always an important component of everything that happens into manufacturing operations. So I'll talk about that from a Gen AI point of view. So let me get straight into it. Busy slide, but let me walk you through how we're thinking about bringing machine equipment telemetry data into the cloud, and essentially talking more about the hybrid edge and cloud. We really want to start seeing data that's coming from equipment. We've already seen in prior slides that we bring equipment telemetry data using partner products, right? So being able to read from multiple equipment, being able to get data also from historians, SCADAs, DCS, et cetera, and bringing that through our edge components and then to the cloud to draw more insight. What we really want to drive forward is not having to select where the data resides or how the data is used and where it's being used. We see ubiquitous data between edge and cloud. So what you see here is a buildup of different functionality from connectivity to storage to ingestion to how the data gets transformed along the way up to how we draw insights with AI ML and visualization, all of that being deployed in an environment that can work both at the edge and in the cloud. One of the tenets we had when we started looking at Sitewise and Sitewise Edge a few years ago was that we would maintain API compatibility between the two environments. We didn't want to break any of that. So today, if you want to retrieve data from IoT Sitewise, both in the cloud and at the edge, you use the same APIs. Those APIs work exactly in the same way. The same models, the same metrics, the same aggregates are used in both environments. So we're continuing to build on that tenet of making sure that the data is available in both environments in the exact same way. There's obviously limitations. When you operate at the edge, you don't have the same elasticity, so there's more planning required, but essentially the functions, the application that you build on top of those environments should work in a transparent manner. So that's what we're driving towards. So wanted to give you a view of how we're thinking about that, where's that going, and what you will see in the future and how IoT Sitewise will evolve with regards to equipment telemetry data. Then, when I think of all of that data that's coming into a single environment, I like to think of how do I represent that data? And this is where I see digital twins coming in the picture. It's fine to make sense of discrete areas of data within a facility, but being able to represent the physicality of that data, being able to tie it to something concrete, helps us as humans to understand what the data is used for, how it is impactful, and how it impacts processes, how it impacts the different tools that we have. So that's how I like to think about digital twins. And what we've put in place is a mental model to help us and our customers and partners think about digital twins and look at it really in three big components. The first one being spatiality, right? So being able to look at spatially accurate replicas, right? As close as possible to the reality, being connected, being able to see the data and the effect of data in near real time on a virtual image of a physical asset. Also the environment of that asset, not just the asset itself, but where it is. That often impacts its operation down the line. So this is really key elements that we see within spatial contextualization. Then connecting real-world data, so IoT data, process information, and so on, to do operation optimization. That's essentially one of the goals that you can have with digital twins, is to use them to have that real representation to help you drive operation optimization and looking at the continuous streams of data that are coming from your equipment. And finally, being able to use predictive tools, right? To understand not just how the equipment or the facility is behaving at the moment, but being able to simulate and predict what's gonna happen under certain conditions. So those are the three big areas that we consider essential components of a digital twin. And we group all of them together into a framework. We like to think of that framework as being built around a set of different services and guidelines that we have. So you can see here a variety of services, starting from IoT Twin Maker down to Spatial Data Lake. So all of those contribute to the framework to be able to provide unified data connectivity, a strong data foundation, which we talked about throughout, operational intelligence, predictive modeling, and spatial integration, right? So this is how we think of digital twin and the direction we're taking overall in AWS towards helping our customers and partners deliver digital twins. Moving to Gen AI, which is essentially a core topic this week. I'm sure you've heard about it a little bit. So a year ago, I was asking myself the question, what will Gen AI do to manufacturing? And honestly, I wasn't clear. I really needed to take time to better understand how it could help us. And you'll see in the next few minutes how that thought has evolved over time. And I think as a collective, we're starting to make sense out of that. And how we make sense out of it is essentially speaking to our customers and partners. We have a lot of customers that have reached out to us to ask us, well, what are you thinking around Gen AI for manufacturing? So we sat down with several of our customers and established a list of 80 use cases with them that could leverage Gen AI technology. And the only way we could do this is because our customers are already invested into Gen AI, right? So 45% of them have started pilot, and 55% of them are thinking about it. So that's super important. So definitely there is an understanding that Gen AI can help and change how we're doing things in manufacturing, specifically when it comes to operations. And with all those customer conversations, basically the clear understanding from our customers that a strong data foundation and visibility to that data is core to a Gen AI strategy. This is truly what's going to unlock the value of Gen AI. So that led us to think about it in essentially three different categories, depending on who will be impacted by Gen AI in a positive manner. So we're thinking of your customers. The first one to be positively impacted with Gen AI by using it in a way to interact with your company in different manners, right? So we're seeing a lot of assistant lately coming out all over the place. It's one example of how it can positively impact your customers. And I'll show you a couple of cases in a minute here. Your employees, helping your employees. If you have a manufacturing company, you have manufacturing operations, helping bridge the gap between the machine, the operating procedures, as an example, understanding the details of how that machine is working, and impacting the people in helping them accelerate how they get access to the information. So that's the second way we're looking at it. It impacts your employee in a positive manner. And your back-end processes, right? And I can tell you that's one thing as a product leader, I'm thinking very often about how can we bring Gen AI in our products without necessarily making it visible as a feature, but just for internal usage. How can we optimize our own software using Gen AI? So same thing applies to your backend processes. So, for customers, again, that have started their journey with Gen AI, we see Georgia Pacific that needed to manage 140 different facilities and wanted essentially to consolidate information to provide troubleshooting guidance to their employees, right? So starting to use Gen AI to do that consolidation, bring everything together. Kone uses it to prototype proof of concept how they're going to deploy their next features or their next changes into their products. Merck is using it in a way that I personally find very interesting and creative by generating essentially negative samples of data so that they can fuel their testing with use cases that otherwise would be hard to have raw data for, right? Because they do not necessarily see all the negative, possible negative use cases that could happen just in their normal process. So now they're using Gen AI to generate worst case scenarios and different negative scenarios and test against that. So that's, I really enjoy that approach into using Gen AI. And finally, Aerosteel, recent customer for us, they've been using Gen AI to do what I was describing a little bit earlier, bridge the gap between machine procedures, how their personnel can use, their maintenance personnel can use those procedures to troubleshoot equipment. They can use it to implement modification to equipment, reset different parameters in order to fix issues. So Aerosteel has started to use a new product feature that we launched a couple of weeks ago called AWS IoT Sitewise Assistant. And what the assistant does in this case is it's able to summarize, my apologies, it's able to summarize what it sees in equipment telemetry data with the context that's coming from knowledge graph into operational procedures, into any sort of documents that may exist in a manufacturing facility, and bring that together to provide good summary around data, alerts, events, alarms, and other type of triggers that could help employees within your facility to understand what's happening and help them troubleshoot faster. Helps doing deep dive in natural language, so you can ask questions. Once you have a summary, you can easily go and drill down into a specific area of the information that you got and help you analyze faster what's happening. So I'll show you here a quick example of how the assistant is working. What you'll see is, first of all, that it's out of the box. It's an out-of-the-box feature. You can use it right away. It's in general availability, so you can use it with IoT Sitewise today. It connects the asset models with operational data and manages the relationships. Does that through Amazon Kendra, where you can bring all of the knowledge into a single place. So what I'll show you here is a quick demo recording, fairly simple, trying to demonstrate how you can get directly from Sitewise Monitor, in this case. You see a visualization that contains different information on equipment. What you're going to see in the demo is the ability to select a few data points and generate summaries directly from that user interface so that there could be an understanding of what's happening with those different assets and the properties of those assets. As we look further into the dashboard, you can see that we have an alarm and that we can actually generate a summary of that alarm as well. Because it is an alarm, the context will be a bit different. The context will include the history of alarms, will contain potential root cause, and potential impact as well as potential solutions, right? So the next interaction that you can think of is, okay, now that I have all that information, as, let's say, a maintenance technician, what I'm interested in having is more detail on one of those potential solutions. So I can just ask the assistant, and the assistant will go fetch the information, bring it back to me, and allow me to go and perform the action. In itself, things that are feasible today, but that are likely coming from data that is distributed across multiple different sources, hard to get into a single place. We didn't move. We stayed in Sitewise Monitor. I stayed in my dashboard. I asked all of those questions, was able to drill down, was able to get to a solution, and now I can go and act on it from a single environment. So to me, that's the possibilities that we see with Gen AI, starting to implement them in our product. So happy to share that with you. If you have any question on that, happy to answer them after the session. And actually, that brings me to the end of the session. I'll leave you with 2 other sessions that I invite you to attend. One tomorrow, MFG206, closing the machine-to-cloud gap, jumpstart your digital transformation. I will be giving that session along with Re-Rig, so a customer that's going to come and talk about their experience on that, and MFG303, which is a workshop focused on building a Gen AI assistant. So I have various people that are involved in that one. I invite you to go to one or the other, because you cannot go to both at the same time. They unfortunately overlap. So on that, I'll say thank you. Thank you to my dear friend of TotalEnergies.